start here. We see Halsey with the Electroid. Pretty clear indication that we're seeing a dwarf aggro player there on the other side.
I have no word from judges right now as to whether you play or wait, guys. I know you guys need to know. I that's
And a
Should we,
Mimeobot.
I say, should we add a couple minutes to the timer here too? Maybe Penta.
I mean we'll add a minute or like a minute or two at best, but oh well the timer's paused, so we won't add anything. Technofeed's on the ball. So we got the two judges. So just to keep everything clear here, guys, the judges are just quickly dealing with I try to stay as far out of the judge stuff as possible because it's not I just want to focus on the shoutcasting, but right now I have no idea what's going on, just being told to wait. So
We do have a robot deck versus robot deck mirror. There are, of course, different ways to build these. So we'll see how they fare bashing robot heads against each other. Like a card game version of BattleBots.
I kind of wonder if Bloodvale top decked that Ruby since he played the Mimeobot second there. Or played the Mimeobot first and played the War Machinist second. Usually you do it in the other order.
I think that's a safe assumption. That one damage in this matchup, an aggro matchup, every damage counts. So maximizing that is often a something you specifically try for. You're willing to take some losses, some riskier attacks, when you lose things just to eke out that damage and win quickly.
So it's also interesting to me that Bloodvale was not willing to trade potentially his Mimeobot for the charge bot there from Halsey. Makes me wonder if maybe he doesn't have more robots or dwarves in his hand, or maybe only one more.
I think we got the word to
just to clarify things that are happening, guys. Do not rounds as normal. Everything will just go on as anticipated with the matchups that you see. Sorry about the break in time and confusion. Have fun.
Perfect. If you have not already started your match, please go ahead and do that now. And if you did, that's fine too.
We have the Great Dwarven Engineering Competition of 2015. I think we may have just lost the stream. Refresh. Get your obligatory panic baskets and stuff in chat.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and continue going on. Just assume that it comes back up. So we see Bloodvale here making the Terrabot in play and attacking with the 3/4 Electroid. Also has a Hornet bot that he has added to the board here. Halsey on 16 already. Looks like he is going to go ahead and chump block on that Electroid.
Looks like we're back on stream. All right.
Yeah, sorry everyone for the technical difficulties there. So to catch everyone back up, Halsey still stuck on one resource. Bloodvale basically able to execute close to the ideal dwarf aggro opening hand. He's got the Electroid that attacked last turn, and he also has the turn 3 Terrabot that is in play, along with the Hornet bot as well here. So really have a strong start from Bloodvale's side. Meanwhile, Halsey going for the what feels like desperation Gearsmith does get a Hornet bot plans that he can play for 0 because of the Gearsmith's ability.
But in terms of getting cards out there, one resource isn't where you want to be.
Yeah, the dwarf deck doesn't need a lot, but it does need more than one
It
for
needs
sure.
two and one of each of its thresholds, really.
Yep.
And if there's a deck that tends to play less than normal resources, it's robot aggro. The Kaldheim style build plays less resources is and sometimes that matters. It can win off one resource if you're lucky. It can definitely work on two, but sometimes this happens.
Yeah, feel like with especially with Bloodvale having multiple terabots. Oh wow. Yeah, it feels like this is pretty easy win here for Bloodvale. Even if Halsey hadn't been shard light, which he is, having multiple terabots here is pretty tough to beat.
I wonder if that was the initial Mimeobot target.
That
It
very well
was,
could be.
in which case, playing that first to get the Terabots into the deck sooner, get more. I can't even actually see if any of them are replicas, but could be. But looks like this will be a quick end to round one, to game one. Hornet Bot isn't blocking anything fast.
Yeah, there's just no way to survive this here. I imagine the players are going to be chatting about who's going to take the play draw here. Now, it is worth saying if you're playing a popular metagame deck like Sapphire Ruby Dwarves, you have to expect if it's going to be a popular deck, I mean, you're choosing it for a reason. You've got to have a good plan for the reserves. What are you going to do that can fight against the mirror match there? And we won't talk about what it is exactly that Bloodvale is going to do here, but it's very important that you know what it is you are going to do in the mirror, because obviously
As
other people know that it's a good deck too.
as with any deck that does well consistently, and that includes robot aggro, that includes mono sapphire, the ever present blood diamond. These are the decks that when you build reserves, no matter what deck you're playing, keep them in mind. Perhaps even that influences what deck you bring to the event itself. But even
So
just choosing what particular cards you put in your reserves is it's an extension of your deck. For games two and games three, how can you better that deck for what you expect to see?
one of the really fun things that you can do is, you know, if you know what it is that you're taking out, and if you can figure out a card that is really good that would have been bad if they still had that in their deck, but it's good now because they're taking it out. That's the kind of thing that you just love to be able to do. Have that switcheroo reserve plan that brings in something that's difficult for the opponent. Again, trying to be a little bit cagey here since we don't want to talk exactly about reserve changes here for these
We can
people.
we can talk in general strategy. Like sometimes you know a card is very bad against your opponent's deck. If you were facing this deck and you had murder, that's like, all right, I don't want to pack murder. Is there a better card that I would rather see than that murder? But sometimes you don't have that luxury of, oh, cleanly I take out three cards, put in three cards. Sometimes it is, I want one less of this card. I want to play two or three instead of three or four, and that gives me room for this card, which is pretty good. So both styles of side decking can tweak your deck, give you a bit of a better chance at what you're fighting. But then again, we're also sometimes you just never see your side deck cards. Sometimes they'll be very, very relevant. But all of these to do the best we can against our matchup.
Absolutely. And it looks like we're ready to start the next game here, so we'll go ahead and bring the game back up again. It's now game two. Bloodvale did win the first one, so Halsey will get the choice on whether he wants to play or draw here.
And aggro decks pretty much always take the play.
It's true. There can be some scenarios where you might take the draw, but yeah, I would expect most people are probably going to take the play.
All right, starting hands are being analyzed. Draw chances being calculated. Halsey going to 5 cards. As many cards as there are shards. And
Yeah,
Halsey on the play, down 2 cards and down 1 game. That is risky.
it's a bad spot to be in. I mean, this deck is definitely one that doesn't need to have all 7 cards on the opener, but it also is harder if you're playing the mirror match and just being down cards.
In addition, that may, but not necessarily, it may lend credence to it being lower on shards than normal builds. Because of course that increases your chance of not getting a hand you can play things out of.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to take out a shard or add a shard if you're on the play versus draw. Yep.
This is a reminder because this did come up earlier. If you want to change the shards in your deck in reserves, the shards must be in your reserves, specifically called out.
That is true. Yeah, when I'm saying adding shards, I do mean it if you had it in your reserves already. So we see a start of Electroid from most players. Halsey, unfortunately, stuck on 1 again, though. A mulligan to 5. It's not unsurprising, but it's just a little bit rough for him. He's definitely up against the wall.
I think yeah, it's the difference between Kaldheim's Robo Aggro and Black Roger's Robo Aggro is like 18 versus 23 shards, which is really significant. That's five whole resource cards. So that can play a whole lot differently depending on what you got. But again, if you draw perfectly, that is so much fuel, so much aggro.
Do you see Bloodvale going for the Construct Foreman so that he can go ahead and start attacking with the Electroid here? The Warbot obviously smaller in stats than the Electroid, but if the opponent is already stumbling a little bit, could be correct to just go ahead and start getting your attacks in now.
All he needs is that shard. It's not going to come out. At least a Gearsmith.
Yeah, Halsey probably gonna end up losing this game too. I mean, it's still possible if he has, let's see, multiple Gearsmiths and Terabots, maybe. Maybe something like that could get him back into this, but it's looking pretty tough for him.
Especially there's a construction plans Hornet bot hiding under the camera there. 1 counter put on it. And Bloodvale can afford to slow down, tunnel a Reese, get ready. If things go wrong in 4 turns, he'll come out and have a party.
Having a party. I like it.
And a burn. Indeed, throwing some, like I mentioned, the difference between the less resource and more resource builds is 5 cards. A lot of those 5 cards in the slightly slower builds put them into answer cards such as Burn, Crackling Bolt, Time Ripple, Verdict, and in the mirror, like even simply a Burn, Heat Wave can wipe a board of tons of Robot Dwarf synergy. But even things like Burn, Crackling Bolt can take out pieces and are useful against other matchups too.
Yeah, often I definitely could see some people playing Heat Waves here because when you're playing aggro on aggro, sometimes the way that you win is you try to go more mid-range and have some removal and try to play a little bit bigger troops than your opponent, try to go over the top. I haven't seen it so far, but it is possible that Halsey's got that there. That would be a way to catch.
That's one of the riskier things, though. Heat Wave, especially a card that affects your own troops, and you see this with Extinction too. There's a point where you may hurt yourself as much as your opponent if you simply Extinction, but sometimes you have to, and if you can do it when your opponent overextends and has much more than you, that's when the value goes. That's when you get value for it. Same with Heat Wave. We see a Rocket Ranger played. It's not something you see super often, but makes sense here. He's what, +2/+2 if you have 1 artifact, flight, no, Flight with 1 artifact,
Right.
+2/+2 with 3 artifacts, and
Right.
with 5, when he attacks, he does 4 damage to a champion or troop, I believe.
Champion, yeah.
So
Okay,
only has 3 artifacts right now, but 4/4 flight. Halsey would need a Terrabot pretty much.
Yeah, it's a good example of a card that could have been tech for the mirror. Just having a four toughness, 4 defense flyer is pretty tough for. I mean, as we've seen already from Vampire King in previous matches, Rocket Ranger having the 4/4 there is pretty relevant. Seems like a good choice. We say Halsey with the tunnel here. Does have Sapphire and Ruby, so it could be anything.
Still has 4 cards in hand. Meanwhile, a hand dump from Bloodvale. He's got 1 card left.
Yeah, and very importantly, one of those cards he's playing now is that Terrabot. And he now has 5 artifacts, which will turn on the last ability for that Rocket Ranger. So we see the direct damage.
4 damage takes him down to 7, and he can only block 1 of those remaining troops, so that's fatal, no matter what the block is. Which will be that.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know how popular Rocket Ranger is today, but that seems like really good tech for the mirror at least, and maybe in other matches too.
Certainly consider that.